Hello and welcome to another episode of Geek Speak. I'm your host Chris, and with me, as will be usual, John. Now, straight into our first bit of news. The DC comic book based series Gotham has recently been revealed to be adding 3 new characters in its 3rd season. The first character that they've announced is a reporter who on the call sheets for auditions has been named Valerie, but a lot of people are hypothesizing or thinking that this may be just a code name for the character of Vicky Vale, which long-term Batman fans may remember from not only the comic book series, but also from the original 1980s Tim Burton Batman movie. Another is a villain who learns people's secrets and manipulates them. They haven't got as much details on this villain yet, but I'm putting money towards it being the Calculator, since that seems like pretty much his sort of idea. The Calculator basically being the villainous version of the hero's oracle. And the third is a young villainess who uses her sexuality to entrap men. And there's a few villains that could be in the Batman universe, but I'm kind of leaning towards it being more Poison Ivy, which would mean that they're not so much getting a new actor as they're making an actor and a character who is already in the series into the character of Ivy. What do you think of this?
Could also be Harlequin.
It's
maybe
possible.
If they want to make her a standalone from the Joker. But
it would be interesting.
Probably say my bet would be Poison Ivy as well.
Yeah, Gotham has played fast and loose with characters' backstories and ages before, seeing as it is based, currently it's a little over a year since the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne, and it's been focused around the investigation into their deaths. But it would be possible. I guess it would be possible for them to add Harley Quinn without having yet added a Joker character. I'm just a little
bit more positive it would be probably Poison.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Now, our second bit of news is that John Boyega, who most recently has starred as Finn, or FN 2287 I think it was, in Star Wars The Force Awakens, has signed up to star in and co-produce the sequel to the 2013 smash Pacific Rim. Now, supposedly what we've heard is that Boyega will be playing the son of Idris Elba's character Stacker Pentecost from the original, and will be joined as as I said earlier, he'll be co-producing with Guillermo del Toro, and the director will be Stephen S. DeKnight. Now, I for one am really excited to see not just a sequel for Pacific Rim, but to see where they take it after the very climactic ending of the original. So, what do you think?
I think it'll be good, but I'm more focused on John Boyega. This could be really... You haven't really seen him in much. It's only really been Star Wars 7 when he's really got his big break, and now he's doing something else that's also got a lot of hype with it. He did well in 7, so this could be a really long action career for him.
Yeah, the one thing I'd be worried about moving forward in his career is getting typecast in sci-fi, but I think the fact that he's played the character of Finn, and then he's going on into something already, it gives him a good chance to basically get a feel for the different things that he likes doing and what he wants to do. And if he ends up anything like Harrison Ford or Mark Hamill from the original Star Wars trilogy, he could become one of the biggest stars of the next 2 decades.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yep. Our third news headline is that Alicia Vikander, who is playing the title character of Lara Croft in the upcoming Tomb Raider reboot movie, has spoken about her history with the character, saying that she'd long been a secret fan of the game since she didn't have many girlfriends as a kid who were interested in gaming, and her parents actually forbid her from playing the games. Despite this fact, she still played most of the Tomb Raider games and was a big fan of them. I personally think this is exactly the kind of person we want to play these title characters in these video game movie adaptations. I mean, as decent as the Angelina Jolie Lara Croft movies were, she was there more for the paycheck than for the love of the character.
Yeah, and someone who's grown up around gaming understands, develops that relationship with the character.
Yeah.
Knows the characteristics of the person.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to show up with a script and a character outline when you're there for the paycheck, but it's another to show up with the script and the character description and have a history with the character and a passion for the character, even before you pick up that script.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that we can see in the end result.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
Now, one of our biggest stories is that, as was reported a few weeks ago, the Supergirl series is moving homes for its second season to the CW network. And a few other big changes have since come to light, including the fact that they will now have a full reveal of Clark Kent and his alias Superman, where previously they had an exchange of text messages between him and Kara, and the occasional silhouetted rescue. And I'm really excited about seeing Superman on screen in something, well, a new Superman on screen, outside of something like the horribly reviewed Batman vs. Superman and the DC cinematic universe, which is just getting horrible reviews and critic scores.
I didn't even watch it. I refuse to watch that movie.
I refuse to watch it as well because
I refuse to watch it.
I just look at it and I think they took it basically screams like a comic book movie written by someone who's never picked up a comic book. And some of the people that have been put forward for this, like, there hasn't been any news on who will be taking up this Superman role, but there's been a lot of fan push since this was announced to have Tom Welling, who played the teenage Clark Kent in the series Smallville. And, of course, the people who are suggesting bringing him back also want Erica Durance to come with him, playing the role of Lois Lane. Now, I think this is a bad idea. Not because he didn't do a wonderful job of playing Clark Kent. It was a very different interpretation, but it was a very good portrayal. But because it would force a hard link between the Smallville series and the Supergirl series and the current DC TV universe, which would raise all sorts of continuity errors and problems.
Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, I can see that.
I mean, Smallville already had not only its own Clark and Lois, but it had a different actress playing Lucy, a different actress playing general lane. It had Lex. Supergirl doesn't have Lex in it. It had a different Jimmy Olsen to the one that's in Supergirl now, which would be very hard to ignore the differences, since the Jimmy Olsen in Supergirl is an African-American man, not the very white man that was in Smallville.
White farmer.
And lastly, the character of Supergirl in Smallville was played by the actress Laura Vandervoort, who has already played the character of Azure in Supergirl. So not only would it cross lines with that particular actor having already played both a villain and the title character in another series, but having those character discontinuities would potentially ruin this, what is generally a very good series.
It depends if the viewers are willing to look past it. It could actually work, but I would honestly try and stay away from even making any conflict at all.
I tend to steer away from it as well, and in fact one of the other people that has been suggested for the role is an actor named Matt Bomer, who some of you may remember from one of his more iconic roles as Bryce Larkin from the series Chuck.
Yeah.
Which admittedly is probably the first place I ever saw him. And he did, even though he was a relatively important character that got very, very little screen time in that series, he was exceptionally good, and I think he would fit the role of Superman, except for the fact that in the timeline he's supposed to be a good 10 years older than Kara, and I really don't think that Matt Bomer would look that age difference.
Yeah, that could be a bit of a problem.
It would be interesting, however, because we have seen in the comics that the Kryptonians, under the influence of a yellow sun, can live for an extended period with very little signs of aging. However, it would be interesting to see, and I'm quite looking forward to not only hearing more news, but seeing who they finally cast and the finished product.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, our last news story is a bit of a double dose here, as they're both Star Wars related and have to do with things finishing up. And the first part of this is that Rian Johnson, who is the director of Star Wars Episode 8, titled to be confirmed, has posted a teaser picture to his Tumblr profile. And the picture is basically of Luke's cloak hanging on an outfit hook, and he captioned it with the words, "in the home stretch." Now, most people have taken this to mean that he's in the home stretch of production, which, while a lot of people a while ago would have thought, oh yeah, that means they've finished principal photography, they've finished filming everything, they're going to go edit it now, they still would have to put in hundreds of hours and months of work doing all the special effects that a movie like this needs.
Which is a bit different from the old Star Wars Episode 4.
Yeah, well, even back then they filmed all of the scenes with the actors and then spent another 6 months doing all of the special effects.
Yeah.
It's just that back then they didn't have computer effects, they had to physically recreate everything, which they did with miniatures. They did with a lot of miniatures
cool.
And ships hanging on fishing lines.
So clever.
And the second part of this Star Wars news is that the The Force Awakens, Episode 7, has finally finished its 6-month-long cinematic run in North America with a final box office taking of $936.6 million, which puts them just shy of the billion-dollar mark in the US and makes them, I think, the third highest grossing movie in the American box office history. I think the only two above it are Avatar and Titanic.
Wow.
Now, admittedly, this is only its domestic take in North America. If you include its global box office takings, that puts it at roughly $2.068 billion. And that's just from box office takings, not including DVD sales or any other extra merchandise. And all of that is off a roughly $245 million budget. So they've made more than 10 times their money back.
Yeah.
Which,
easily.
on anything, is a like, normally in Hollywood, making that much would be a guarantee of a sequel, even if there wasn't one already planned. And for them to make this is mind-blowing.
Which is interesting when you consider number 4 and how much it actually grossed. Number 5, how much it grossed.
But then you've also got to take into account inflation. And, I mean, we're only halfway through the year, but already this is most likely going to be the highest grossing film, not only of this year, but probably of this decade, unless episodes 8 or 9, or Rogue One, or even the as yet untitled Han Solo pilot make more, which I'm not certain that they will, because this is the first Star Wars in over a decade, and it's probably the best Star Wars in over 2 decades.
Let's be real, it was the best in over 2 decades.
Well, admittedly, this Star Wars has actually started people's careers instead of ending them. Now,
they came back from episode 3.
Yes, they did. Now, as our as has been a long-running tradition, it's time for us to do our final recommendations for the week. Thank you to our third co-host for the little input there. My recommendation for this week is actually a Disney cartoon series called Gravity Falls, which I've been watching recently, and it is brilliant. It's only 2 seasons, but it is very much a supernatural mystery show. It's got a bit of magic, a bit of science. It's really good, and there's a handful of mysteries that are still left open, like how certain things have shown up and where things are going, but I've heard that they'll get explained. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I really recommend that if you haven't seen it, you get a copy of it and you watch it.
I'm going to recommend the series, the anime series Zero no Tsukaima, because it's just an old classic. It's very good, very interesting. You've seen it as well. I mean, it's a solid bet. If you got nothing to watch, you're thinking, oh, what anime do I watch? That's a solid one to go with. You'll never go wrong with that one. Yeah,
it's definitely an anime that tries to bridge as many gaps as it can. It's a bit of a, I guess it's a supernatural fantasy harem series. It's kind of difficult to describe because it does have 3 full seasons.
And they just flop everywhere, to be honest. It starts here, goes over here for a bit, then comes back here, and then ties it up.
It does kind of go everywhere, but it is as John said, it's a well worth it's a series that is well worth the watch.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all from us, so we'll see you all next week.
So yeah.